as we approach a research from the empirical perspective, we see that any kind of direct data that we absorb, that we collect and gather in the process of the research findings is not just direct, but there are many other associations, many other connections that we add to it, and finally it builds up the story. And that takes us to the deeper root of that happening, and it helps us to go farther and learn from the existing knowledge. It helps us to preserve the knowledge and get benefited by the virtue of it. However, we are using different traditional folk art practices as examples just to establish the thought process of the basic principle and the basic principle objectives that are connected to the topics related to Indian folk and minor art. And we are just picking up different traditions and the creations as examples to make it more enriched. And without the example, how could we establish that? And this is also true that when we look at one tradition, though it's very direct and empirical as a research approach, we try to find out the affinities, the similarities that are existing in the other traditions also, which are almost analogous. So the different traditions that we take into account and try to understand the logic and the principles in the context. So in this module, we are again, like, we're not shifting from the focus of understanding the range of practice, how well spread they are, how varied they are, at the same time how well connected they are. There are lots of similarities and they're fascinating to search and see. So here we are going to talk about the temple traditions, and I'm taking into account two traditions which are analogous to it from Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. That is Kalamkari from Srikalahasti and Machilipattanam, and also the Cherial painting from Cherial village that has that is also known as the Warangal painting from the past. Those were very closely connected, very closely associated because of their cultural root, but there are slight differences also. And when we look at Cherial painting, it's quite amazing to know that how they are connected to some of the stories that are collected in our documentation from the local saying, the local beliefs of Bengal. Only there are subtle changes of the names and other things, but all those myths and facts are deeply connected. So let's see what we get out of it. Kalamkari painting of Srikalahasti, Chittoor district, Andhra Pradesh. The Deccan Plateau of India is situated at the south of Vindhya and Satpura mountain that we know, the mountain ranges, in some isolation from the north, causing some cultural difference due to the infrequent communication. The two rivers, Godavari and Kaveri, flowing down eastwards to the Bay of Bengal, that is fortifying the cultural endeavors in the banks of these two rivers over times. Also, its stretched coastline with natural seaports provided openings for cultural contacts through trades with the foreign countries. The interaction they shared with Far Eastern and European market included Indonesia, Italy and China. The merchandise for trade included spices, muslin fabric, the muslin, cotton, silk, indigo, dye. Vijayanagar, established in 1336 on the banks of river Tungabhadra, surfaced as a center for power in South India. Tamil kings were dethroned and a large port of Tamil Nadu came under Telugu dominance, and then later Tanjavur, present Tanjore, as a business capital under Maratha dominance came into the scene. It's very fascinating to see that the Maratha kings, the rulers from Maharashtra, they were the great patrons for Tanjore painting, and they played a very prominent role into the growth and flourishment of this tradition. Telugu was recognized as a state language and intruded all art forms. Kalamkari originated and grew under the patronage and conceded the stimulus of Tamil, Telugu, and Maratha art and culture. Kalamkari refers to the surface decoration on a readily woven fabric. Unlike other fabrics that are dyed and then woven, and the pattern reveals while the process of weaving is on, like any other analogous activities that includes the weaving on textile. Kalamkari had a different route. It was mainly painted on cotton or silk, or all sort of organic materials are appropriate for it. Nowadays they're also painting them on crepes and other alternative silks. They're printing, and it's gone in a very different direction. But then it's a tradition where more than a textile tradition, we can call it a painting tradition because of this reason. Because it's either block printed or painted on cloth. So the patterns are not simultaneously developed when the fabric is woven in a loom. There were two distinctive techniques that developed in the formative periods for Kalamkari. One is the decoration using the freehand drawing with a neeb, the religious scroll paintings for use in temples, that is based in Srikalahasti, and the decorative woodblock printing, which are printed, the printed textile to be used as dress material, or it's used for the other fabrications, that is based in another center called Machilipattanam. So I'll read a quote from Shakuntala Ramani in this context. That is, the temple tradition of Kalamkari had a larger role to play than the mere marketing of pictures. The ceremonial requirements of the temple, like Savanagiri, canopies, cylindrical thrombis, to be tied to the processional chariots, the banners and flags which were carried during the procession were all made by Kalamkari craftsmen. Ceremonial flags with auspicious figures like the bull or hamsa, the torans known as vasamalai, garlands for the doorway, were first painted in vibrant colors and then cut and stitched into appropriate shapes. This kind of uplift clothes are still present in Sikkinaikenpet in the Tanjore district, close to the temples of Kumbakonam and the Tirupannadal Mutt, a Tamil Saivite monastery. What we see in the image is not the Kalamkari that we are familiar in today's term, but right now, like what we see are some colored fabrics, the colored clothes. They're like the patterns are drawn over it, they're cut and stitched out in the form of an applique that is very typical to Pipli in Odisha. But the figuration, the sensibilities carry the same aesthetic quality of the present Kalamkari tradition. So there are stylistic affinity there. So let's get into some very important data which will connect all these traditions and tell us more about it. So the ancient centers of Kalamkari, that is our prime concern now, long before the Common Era, Indian textile tradition of dyeing and printing textiles, not only as the religious art but also as an industry with high demand on design motifs and vegetable dye, it was existing. Kalamkari, the name came during the Muslim rule because it was painted with kalam. Uh, it's kalamkari, the karya or the work done with pen. So the pen work that gave it the name of kalamkari. So this is like the name was coined during the Muslim invasion and the Muslim rule. As the Sultan of Golconda identified the artisans who painted on fabric with a kalam as the kalamkars, that is the term they used. So it has slowly lost the Islamic connection that added many interesting motifs to this tradition if we go by those examples. And the practice of this, which is slightly controversial, but it is said that the tradition goes 3000 years back because the first kalamkari cloth was supposedly to be found in Indus Valley from the evidences of the Indus Valley civilization from Mohenjo-daro. So, the 3000 years old tradition of Andhra Pradesh was centralized in the two major places named Srikalahasti and Machilipattanam. So, Srikalahasti style is drawing on cloth using a handmade pen or with the dye inspired from the narrative relief panels on the walls of Hindu temples based on Hindu mythologies. And the Machilipattanam style, on the other hand, had the Muslim influence. To its principle. Visually, they have lots of temple motifs which are taken from the Hindu tradition, but the reason they shifted to block printing, the non-figurative block printing, where it is mostly dominated by the simplified natural motifs, mostly taken from the local temples of Hindu gods and goddesses. So, a district the Machilipattanam thing, that has a distinct Islamic influence caused by the Qutub Shahi rulers of that time. The style evolved drawing with a kalam or a pen as well as engraved wooden blocks with non-figurative patterns for printing on the fabric for daily use generally. So, Qutub Shahi rulers influenced a strong trade connection with the Persian Safavid dynasty rulers, and which ensured a regular purchase of kalamkari textiles. So, they had a trade route from Iran and they had this Middle Eastern connection for a very long time. The Sultan of Golconda as well as the Mughal rulers favored the practice to a large extent. The aesthetic created to the Dutch and British taste and evolved accordingly. Machilipattanam being a port town very close to the river, and also there had been the connection through ships. Because of that, it managed its production range to suit the demands of a particular religious taste for a market thriving in the Middle Eastern imageries, included the floral buttas, the mihrab of the mosques, the cypress tree depicting the traditional tree of life. That's still a very rare and adorable motif in kalamkari. There are still quite a few painters who are painting the tree of life, which is very rich in its pictorial quality. and it's a distinctive feature of kalamkari practice in India. So, there are animals mentioned in Sufi literature and also in Quran. So, not all animals that you get to see there, but anyway, by the time Islamic rule declined in Andhra Pradesh, it indicated a downfall in the craft tradition of Andhra Pradesh for obvious reasons. So, cloth used for kalamkari should be unbleached, the calico or silk duly soaked in cow dung. So, we will also discuss a bit of a method and material that is involved to the ancient practice and also the current practice, which is almost the same for kalamkari. Cloth used for kalamkari should be unbleached, calico or silk duly soaked in cow dung, castor oil and bleaching soda to remove starch, and glue, which is used for sizing if there is any, to make it fully penetrable for the dyes so that it penetrates well. Myrobalan from the nut family, which is known as harhar or hartaki in northern India, mixed with sticky buffalo milk, is the solution that is used to prepare the ground for painting. The milk content prevents the color from spreading and smudging. The drawing is then made using a kalam, typically made out of bamboo stick, sharply pointed at the end and tied by cotton threads that hold the liquid dye to be squeezed and dropped as the artists execute the image with a smooth and continuous flow. Myrobalan produces greenish yellow ochre, that kind of a tint, as the seeds are grinded into powder and made into a paste by diluting it. Kasim is the black made out of iron scraps and jaggery solution brewed in clay pots. Jaggery helps the fermentation process. Alum and salt are used to develop rest of the vegetable dyes, and the process is often complex. Diluted alum produces an intense red while applied on myrobalan dyed surface. Surul pattal for purplish brown. Manjishta is rose madder. Thomachekka, the branches of rust, yellow from payuri or the urine of cow that is fed mango lids. Pomegranate seed, dried yellow flowers of dadup, and indigo blue, dried raw mango powder, katha, are used extensively. After the final development, and the painted clothes are washed in running river water and dried on the river bank under sun for permanence. So, that is perhaps the reason why the tradition grew in places where there had been a river or permanent water body close by. But in Srikalahasti right now, the supply of water is not so high, but still there's a river, and that takes care of the work mostly. So, it's a temple tradition, and again we are trying to focus on the present scenario a little bit. In Srikalahasti, a socio-economic empowerment program seized the art from dying. Dwarakanath Reddy and Ramanarpanam Trust funds the program, in which the whole cluster could foster a sustainable promote aiming at global market, duly keeping the present users in mind. They are prompt in maintaining websites and connect directly to the buyers. Machilipattanam, on the contrary, is not so easily accessible for the fact that once a major international trading port has now been shrunken to an unfledged fishing village. Although the fading of exquisite Islamic motifs remains a matter of concern, it is remarkable how the artisans are moving towards the hand painted Srikalahasti style for better scopes of innovative production. During the field study in Srikalahasti and Hyderabad, the author happened to interact with many artists and artisans to understand the present scenario and workflow. Amongst many apprehension regarding the future and sustainability issues, there are two significant comments that are apparently unrelated as concerns could be counted noteworthy. Both the concerns require two steps of actions. First is the thorough intellectual scrutiny to the production parameters, and secondly, a possible alteration to the existing production management. With this, we are moving to another very interesting artifact from Warangal. This is quite old and it's kept in the Dakshin Chitra Museum close to Chennai. So, what we see is a shrine for the temple purposes with the image of like one single figure on top and a narrative that is going on. Interestingly, like any other Patachitra or the narrative scroll, it also has a Indian red background that is almost flat and that is using as a contrast. The reason why I'm mentioning that is this color red has a tendency to come to the foreground, and because of that the illusion of depth is not so prominent. It gives you a very two-dimensional feel, and that takes the narrative going. It doesn't take us in, and there's no visual push and pull that distracts us from the flow of the story throughout. So that is quite favorable for the storytelling here. In fact, it is said in medieval India, when in the late 17th century, when Patachitra tradition was thriving in all over India almost. Like we are yet to discuss another tradition from Gujarat, that is Matani Pachedi, where they combine the block prints and the hand painted images in the same fabric. Though the ancient center is lost now and it has moved to the urban places and continuing with the thing, but we'll see the new profile of it. But more or less everywhere, when there's a narrative Patachitra tradition took place from 17th to 19th, 20th century, or like continuously, that was at one point was the only mode of entertainment that everybody had, and it caused a very crucial social change that though many of the people were illiterate in that time, but they can't be marked as uneducated because the education had nothing to do with literacy for that time. So, because of this Patachitra and the tradition, the oral traditions that existed in India, people were very highly educated through the moral stories and stories from the epics. The sense of literature in the oral context was very rich for them. They were philosophically very fine and tuned. So, those are the social responsibilities that was very successfully taken care of by the people who painted the scrolls and told the stories, wrote the orations in the form of poetry, sang those songs, and I think I'm repeating that quite a few times. So, let's see some more to support my statements, some more examples. What we see in the picture is one example of cherial painting from Warangal. It has a connection to the Warangal and Lingoda tradition of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, and the image is there in Dakshin Chitra Museum. So, the mandates were the itinerant birds, and performers of Andhra Pradesh, while the Nakashis were the artists. The Nakashis of Telangana also made dolls, much like the Kinnal dolls of Karnataka, in addition to the painted scrolls. The scrolls were very important part of the sociological and cultural setting of Telangana, as these paintings are now confined to Cherial village. They are called Cherial scrolls. These are collected from Wikipedia sources. In earlier times, the scrolls were a colorful backdrop to the equally interesting oral traditions of the common people. The village Hajam barber, toddy tapper, dhobi washerman, charmer leather worker, fisherman, weaver, and farmer. The 7 working marginalized castes and communities of the village were very, very powerful. They are the Madigas, Gods, Mudirajus, Malas, Padmashali, Chakala, and Mangali. So this is very interesting to see that most of the scrolls tells a story which is quite familiar with the story of the Patachitrakars of Bengal. There the story was like the master craftsman, the gods of the craftsman, Vishwakarma. He fell in love with an Urvashi named Gritachi, and they gave birth to 10 children, and they all were from the craftsman community. Here in the Cherial scrolls, they tell a similar story with a slight different bent, where we'll see from the pictures. The story usually starts with the image of Ganesha at the right top to begin with, and it has a direction, it goes from left to right in the visual. So we see Ganesha being offered with some prasad, and then we see the 3 gods, Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwar. They're coming to visit Ganesha, and then Brahma starts perspiring, which leads to some disaster, and then there comes character who takes shelter, and from the sweats of Brahma takes birth the 10 sons of another Gandharva, and all those 10 sons get into all these professions, like like somebody is a barber, the other one is a washerman, the one is a leather worker, fisherman, weaver, and farmer. So that is very interesting to see how again the background is flat, and there are characters who are placed in a narrative formation, and it also has the Western Indian influence that is quite prominent in the Odisha Patachitra. But we can clearly make out that this is a tradition which is visually very different from Kalamkari or Odisha or Bengal Patachitra, with lots of stylistic affinity, but the identity is very, very prominent and distinctive here. So the scrolls set out the adventures and exploits of local folk heroes who performed on the fringes of epics, Puranas, etc. of the Hindu greater tradition. Each community had its peculiarities and its favorite heroes and heroines, as also selection of stories from local mythologies. It was also customary to sacrifice a goat after the recitation of the story from the scroll in some communities. As we have discussed many such narrative traditions throughout the 5th module, to realize the continuum of the practice, Considering the ancient centers, the current practice, we also discussed the method materials, how much are authentic and taken from the available sources, and also quite a few exponents and patrons who let the tradition grow and flourish. So, in that context, we cannot leave another tradition, and I'll briefly describe the artwork of the Phad painting from Rajasthan. Phad is a word that has the similar meaning of put or the canvas, the surface, and the two dimensionality and the narrative that's there in that connection also. So, let's see one example, which is a very humble example. There are enormous screens that they produce, and the whole thing comes with a lively performance with dance, music, and narrations with playing very interesting folk instruments. And that takes place in the desert to get people enlivened with the stories of Pabuji, that is Pabuji Ka Phad of Rajasthan. Pabuji Ka Phad. It is a hereditary art form which is passed on from father to son. A Bhopa commissions this painting for religious purpose. The painting is drawn on a cotton cloth. The cloth is first prepared by applying a paste of flour and gum. It is then polished with a stone. An auspicious date is chosen for starting the painting, since it is used for religious purpose by the Bhopa. A virgin girl only has the privilege to giving the first stroke of the brush on the Phad painting. Normally, the girl belongs to the painter's family or to a high caste. An outline of the painting is drawn by the artist with light yellow color paint. Only earth colors or vegetable colors or indigo are allowed to be used. The colors are then mixed with gum and water and painted on color after the other in the order of orange, yellow, and so forth. Black is the last color paint used for the border. Again, on an auspicious day, the painting is signed by the artist at the center of the painting, close to the image of the main deity. Signature of the Bhopa who commissions the painting is also included, but it is optional. As a last act, the artist is said to give life or awaken the deity of the painting by opening the pupil in the eyes of the main deity at the center of the painting. It then becomes the Pabuji Ki Phad of the Bhopa who has commissioned it. A Phad canvas is usually of 15 feet by 5 feet sheet cloth, on which are painted or sewn the miniature scenes depicting the life of Pabuji and his adventures. The Phad or Pur represents in its painting the court of Pabuji as a historical true Rajput chief who sacrifices his life for protection of others, his palace and his divine character as an incarnation of Lakshmana, the brother of the Rama of the Ramayana Hindu epic story, the forts in which he lived, as well as the sanctum of his goddess Deval. The backdrop of such narrations is invariably in the desert villages of Rajasthan. The image in the painting are arranged logically, also showing revengeful exploits of his nephew on his enemy, Jindarv Kechi. However, iconographically, it is considered as extremely complex and intricate.